Hello there, my friends. It's Cassie, and welcome back for another YouTube video. Today I have the My Favorite Things Sky High Friends card kit. As of filming, this one is still available, so I will have it linked down below along with all the little separate bits that come with it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what comes in this kit. There is so much paper. There's like 29 sheets of paper. Oh my goodness. Along with a paper pack, two stamp sets. It's just incredible how much is in here. So this paper pack is the Petite Gingham paper pad, and there is one each of, how many sheets are in there? I want to say it's 24 sheets. Yeah, 24 sheets. There's one each, and it's fabulous. And then here's the stamp set. This is the big one. It's the Sky High Friends. And then there's the matching die, and then we also have the Best Adventure Bears, which is adorable with its matching die set. And then we have all this paper, and I'm going to go through what each of them is, but here's the idea sheet. And then you're going to get a piece of boysenberry, lavender fields, wild wisteria, cornflower, blue yonder, blue breeze, tropical teal, blue raspberry, berrylicious, jelly bean green, gumdrop green, lime light, pineapple, lemon drop, lemon chiffon, persimmon, orange zest, coral crush, peach bellini, red hot, razzleberry, ripe raspberry, cotton candy, tickled pink, and 5 sheets of their white cardstock. So it's a ton of cardstock. I think I was missing one. It was the Blue Breeze. But My Favorite Things is so awesome that they actually compensated for that. So it's very cool. It's a great company. So let's go ahead and get right into what we're going to be making today. Okay, well, before we actually get into what we're making, I did want to show you that I had stamped out lots of the images. I actually stamped up more than this, but these are what I colored. I colored some with Copic markers, and I also colored some with some of my Daniel Smith watercolors. And yeah, just stamped it out and colored them while I was on vacation, and now I'm just going to use the matching dies on these, and we'll cut all of them out. But I'm going to have tons of images to make tons of cards, so hold on tight. We've got 5 cards that I'm going to show you, and then I will show you 3 cards that I made without the camera on. All right, so now let's get started with what we're making. All right, for card number 1, I have pulled out 4 of the different pieces of cardstock. I don't remember the names because honestly I didn't write them down. And then I did pull in this Heffy Doodle Silver Lining Clouds border die that I have just because I'm in love with it and it just works so beautifully together. I had in my mind this idea, and you very well could just stack your cardstock and not make it as hard as I did. I decided to make this a little bit more like a puzzle. So as you'll see, I'll run each piece of cardstock through, but then I'm going to line up the die that it had before, and I am going to, tape down the die and run that through my die cutting machine. And the reason I do it this way is because I plan to use a stencil over the top, and I know that sometimes when you have layered cardstock, trying to put a stencil over the top, there can be some gaps. And so I didn't really want that, and I didn't really want to work with that, and I thought just making it a little bit more like a puzzle would work better. There's probably an easier way, probably a better way, but this is how I found my brain was going to work, and it worked. It ended up working out beautifully once I figured out the way to do it. And so we're just going to keep cutting these pieces of cardstock this way. I had already cut them down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so this would be the whole front of an A2 size card. I do end up cutting this down even more, and I'll show you that later. But I wanted the colors to go in a variegated order, like an ombre order. And with the stack of cardstock that My Favorite Things has thrown in this kit, you can absolutely do this. And I will say that it was so much fun to have an entire rainbow of cardstock in there and just kind of make as many cards as I possibly could using an array of different colors, which was, I don't normally grab colored cardstock for my bases, and I ended up just thoroughly enjoying making all these cards, and this is why I couldn't stop. It's funny how you throw a rainbow in front of somebody and the ideas just flow, and you don't have to stick to the same color sky that we always see, which is blue. And if you look at pictures of skies, you're going to see all kinds of different colors, which is why I decided to go with this yellow into orange. I thought that it would just be beautiful this way, and it ends up being, I say one of my favorites that I made, but I end up loving all of them that I made. So I was a very happy little camper here with all the rainbow cardstock. So yeah. So I'll just keep going, and I'll keep doing what you're seeing here, just kind of holding it down and taping those in place. I line the as you could see what I was doing, I line up the cardstock that I've already cut out on top of the, the next one that I need to cut out, and then tape that down. And this way everything will fit together like a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch and like a puzzle. So that ended up working out just nicely. And as you can see, I'm flipping them over and I'm taping them together with some washi tape. So the back looks hideous, but that really doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. And I end up even adding some purple tape later on before I run it through my die cutting machine to trim it down even more. But this worked out fine. I did want to add that stencil. So that stencil is the My Favorite Things Ray of Light stencil. And it wasn't working to hold it down on my glass mat. So this Wendy Vecchi station is what it's called, art station, is actually very new to me. This is the first time I'm using it, and jury's still out. Don't see, because here I'm struggling. The magnets work great. I think I'm just going to need to keep playing with it and working with it, because I ended up just taping down my piece onto that station. And it's nice because it does keep things fairly contained, which is good, but I still kind of struggled with it. Like I said, I'm just going to have to keep playing with it to see what I really think. So I'm taking my Trinity brushes and I am rubbing some pigment white ink through that stencil. This way I can have almost like a ray of sunshine. I mean, that's Ray of Light stencil, that's what it is, and I love that look. So here you'll see I'm taping down a little bit more of the purple tape on that back. And then we're going to run this through our die cutting machine with a bigger stitched rectangle that I have. I don't think that this set is still available, but I will link something similar down below. For my sentiments, which I think I do for most of the sentiments that I end up stamping on the cards that I use, I stamp onto some black cardstock that I had in my stash, used a magic powder bag over that, stamped it with some embossing ink, and then covered that with some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. And then I did pull in a few different die sets. This die set is the Skinny Strips die from My Favorite Things. And I did pull in some other various sets, you'll see here too, just to add a little bit more. I covered the back of my little bears, and those ones come from the little set. I covered those with some foam tape, pulled off all the release paper and stuck that one down, and then I'm just going to use some liquid glue to adhere down my sentiment. You could use foam tape on that as well if you wanted. And then I'm going to adhere this down to the card base that I have there. Again, didn't write down what it is, but that's that lightest yellow. And here I'll bring in the Sending Prayers stamp set. This stamp that I chose for the inside was just perfect. I use it again on another one. It says, I think it says, yeah, prayers going up, which is perfect because we're using little balloons. And then for embellishments, and I use these embellishments throughout as well, these are the HAI Supply Diamond Clear Jewels. They come in 3 different sizes in this pack, and it's perfect because they're clear and they're just beautiful. They add a little something something without going too crazy. And like I said, I think I use these on several of the cards that I make today. So I'll just tack that down with my jewel picker, and one of them I hadn't actually adhered down, and some liquid glue, and that's going to finish off our first card. Love how this one turned out. It was so much fun to use something different than your regular blue sky. For card number 2, I have a couple pieces of that gorgeous gingham paper, and I'm going to use that large rectangle once again on the purple, and then I'm going to use my Wonky stitched circle die twice actually on the yellow piece that I have there. I'll run that through my die cutting machine and I'll have all my pieces ready to go. The images that I've decided to use are some of the watercolored ones. I had actually stamped those onto some Arteza watercolor paper and then colored those with my Daniel Smith watercolors. I did stamp them using I think it was VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and then I actually heat embossed those with some clear embossing powder just because it would make it a little easier to watercolor. I'm going to tack down my circles onto my gingham rectangle, and I'm going to leave some pieces just kind of hanging off the edge. I like doing that. It kind of gives the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. And here I'm going to pull in my Fine Tech pearlescent colors. These have kind of a shimmer to them. They're very opaque. You add a couple spritzes of water to them and then they're ready to go. But I'm going to use these as splatter today. I'm just using the purple from this set, and I'm going to splatter that pretty liberally all over the background. It's very, very subtle, but it just adds a little something extra so that it's not so, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know, but I just like the look of it. So we'll just go with that. It just seemed too perfect. Not that it was, but you know what I'm saying. It just seemed a little too much. So I needed some splatter on that background just to kind of break it up a little. And there it was. So now I'm going to trim off the excess of those circles. Now I don't need those anymore. I kind of want, you could do it ahead of time, but I just want to make sure everything was good and dry. And now we'll adhere that panel to my card base with some liquid glue. And I did put some foam squares on the back of just my little bunnies that are on the going to be on the outside. I'm not going to tack down that first bunny, but I'm going to use him as a little guide for my clouds. I want those to be behind him, and he'll be propped up on those foam squares. And so then once I have the clouds down where I'd like them, I'll peel off the release paper from my little bunny. So cute. And you know, you could use these bunnies for some like welcome baby cards or something. I think they'd be darling for that. They have a lot of potential for this little set. So cute. And then I'm going to use the liquid glue on my sentiment. I did the same thing for this sentiment as I did on the previous card, just stamped it on that black cardstock and heat embossed it, and then used the skinny strips die. It has a couple different types. It has a couple with flag banner and a couple that don't. They're just like a giant skinny rectangle. And then I'll tack down my 2 stars. And then I'm going to bring in some embellishments. These are the Trinity Stamps Itty Bitty Black Stars. I'll put those into my tray. And I do want to say that when I colored all of my images, I actually just went with rainbow, just went crazy. I matched out the colors that I wanted, the Copic colors that I wanted with the cardstock that I had, and just kind of worked from there. I really had nothing in particular in mind when I did it. Isn't that cute? I love how that looks. But I ended up having some really great things, some starting points. So just keep that in mind when you go to color your images. Card number 3, we're going to make a galaxy without all the typical work that a galaxy might take. So I have some Midnight Snack ink by Simon Hurley, and I have one of my Trinity brushes, and I am just inking up all the edges, and I'm bringing that blue in to this piece of blue cardstock that I have. So my suggestion is to start with a colored piece of cardstock, because the results that you can get by changing it just a little bit are so much fun. This background was just, I loved doing it. I'll just say that. So now we have this piece of cardstock. It's cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and we're going to start just doctoring it a little bit. I have a stencil from My Favorite Things. This is the card size star confetti stencil, so there's 2 pieces to it. I'm going to spritz some Gold Sheer Shimmer Spritz all over that, and I was pretty liberal with it, but you'll see there. And then I have so much left over on the stencil that I actually decide to flip it onto just a random piece of cardstock that I had in my stash, and then I'll use this for another background later, but it's kind of pretty. I like that. And then I'll clean up my mess, but look at that shimmer. I'm going to hit that with a heat tool because I want to bring in the second stencil, which is really fun actually. So you've got this one piece, so it's like star confetti coming down. I'm going to bring in the second part of this, the other stencil, and we're going to use the Wendy Vecchi Art Station, and we're going to bring in some Gina K glitter gel, and this is clear. So I'm just going to use a spatula that I have. It's an art spatula, and I will just spread that all over those stars. I wasn't sure if it was going to end up seeping through because this wasn't necessarily holding the stencil down great, but it ends up being just fine, not a big deal. And then I will get all the excess off my spatula and wipe off all the excess off the stencil, and then we'll carefully try to pull away those magnets and just reveal what we have, because to be honest with you, I wasn't sure, like I said, if it had seeped underneath because it wasn't really holding the stencil super close to it. But it worked fine. So there it is. We'll clean up our mess, and then I'm going to hit that with a heat tool because I want to move on to the next part. The next part of making this galaxy or nighttime sky would be to bring in some white paint. This is the Picket Fence Distress Paint. I use this all the time. I'm going to put a little bit of that on a stamp block, and then I'm going to splatter, splatter, splatter all over that background, and this just brings it to life. It just takes it over the edge. And I love this background. Love it. And I love how easy it really was, honestly. So then I'll heat set that again because I'm an impatient crafter and I want to move on to the next part. But first, Max and Miles want to come in and say hello. They haven't done this in a hot minute. They're always off wrestling or something, but they came in to see me, and I can't turn off the camera when they come see me. So I got to get some little kitty snuggles and then we'll move on. All right, moving on. We're going to put some foam tape on the back of the image that I decide to use. I'll peel off all the release paper and I'll tack down our little image and then tack down our clouds using some foam tape and some liquid glue on this one. But I have to say, if you see how those are all die cut out, I love the way these die cuts will cut out the inside of the balloon as well. And they'll even do it on a couple, like the bunny ears, inside the bunny ears in some of those. I love it. So I feel like this die set is almost essential when you get this set. It's just fabulous. And because I like to be different, I end up trimming down like 1/8 of an inch on both the left and right hand side. Mostly because I just wanted the blue cardstock that I used to show through, just to show you that there is a variation. So I started off with that blue cardstock that is my card base, and I ended up changing it to what you see our card panel is. I'm going to tack down my sentiment using some liquid glue and trying to line it up on my glass mat. Again, same process as I did for the first two, nothing new there. And then I will attach down our card panel to our card base, and I'll leave a little bit of blue on that right-hand side of the card, or left-hand side of the card. And then we have to move on to the inside and do a little something something in there. So I am going to pull in another set of the little bunnies. Oh, I love them. They're so cute just to sleep on their clouds, except this one, he's wide awake. And then, but like I was saying, so that little bunny, the awake bunny, he has in between his ears is cut out. I think that's so cool. So fun. And that's going to finish off the inside of this card. In fact, it'll finish off the entire card. And I just am so happy with how that background turned out. So much fun. And I think it's great that you can start with just a regular piece of cardstock and transform it into something so cool. For card number 4, I wanted to use a bunch of paper strips. So I have a piece of cardstock. This is one of the pink that came in the kit, cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so the whole front of an A2 size card. And I've cut down in rainbow a bunch of the strips of cardstock, or the gingham paper, and I cut them to be just a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. They're kind of in between 1/4 and 1/2 inch, so whatever that is. Yeah. So I went ahead and cut those, and then I'm going to just put those down in rainbow order, and I'm trying to, here as we get started, keep that paper so that I can cut off, if I need to, some of the excess. When we get towards the middle of the diagonal, they're not even going to go all the way across, which is fine. At this point, I realize I'm going to have to cut this down. I thought about just trimming it down a little bit, but it turns out I'm going to have to trim it down a little bit more than that. But we're just going to keep going in rainbow order until we run out of paper. And I only cut 2 of each color, but by kind of keeping a bunch of the excess from the beginning pieces, I'll end up using those, and then there just is really not a lot of waste, which is nice. So here we go. I'll cut down, trim down a little bit more of the excess, and I do have this sped up to about 4 times, but I love how this ends up turning out. And then once all that is done and attached, we're going to take our guillotine trimmer, our Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. We're going to put this through there and trim off all those excess pieces of paper. And it ends up just flawless. It's wonderful. Love it. And then when we flip it over, you'll see what we're left with, which is this beautiful rainbow pattern. And as you can tell in those 2 corners, yeah, it didn't obviously go all the way to those edges. So I'll pull in the inside out stitched rectangle die. It's a bunch of them by My Favorite Things, and then I'll take the biggest one and I'll just trim that down, and then we'll run that through our die cutting machine, and that's the panel we're left with. I went ahead and cut and stamped a few more clouds, and then I have this sentiment, and I'll trim this down using my guillotine trimmer as well, and then we'll cut it to be a little bit of a diagonal on that right hand side just using the guillotine trimmer. And then we'll grab some foam tape and put that on the back of our bear. We won't attach them yet because we want to put down a few of those clouds. It needed a little something, so those white clouds will just make it pop a little bit more against that gingham background. And we're just using the balloon as a guide right now at this point. And then we'll peel off all of our release paper on our little bears. And then we'll attach that down. And then we'll use our liquid glue to adhere down our sentiment. We will have a little bit hanging off the edge, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and trim that off with our scissors. And then we'll attach this down to our panel, which is some more of that pink cardstock. And this is a side folding A2 size card, like most of the cards I think I've made today. I will make a slim line, but I'm not showing you the slim line. Sorry about that. I mean, I'll show you the end result. Those are my little bonus cards that I like to say. I do have 3 bonus cards to show you. I inked up that same image with some Simon Hurley Prom Queen ink. And then I'm going to bring in that prayers sentiment again because it's just perfect. So it says prayers going up. It's wonderful. And that will be our finished card number 4. Love all the rainbow on there. Who wouldn't be happy getting a rainbow in the mail, right? All right, for card number 5, I'm going to start with a red card panel, and this one is cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches as well. I have used that cloud border die from Heffy Doodle that I used earlier on a piece of the 6x6 gingham paper, and I just cut that all along. We're going to layer this because we don't care. This is just a very light yellow gingham. And I'm going to pull in some Simon Hurley ink in the color Psych because I do want to add just a little bit of contrast on those clouds. It'll just add a little bit of interest. And so I'll grab my Trinity brush in yellow, and then I'll sponge just the edges of those clouds on all 3 of those pieces. And then we'll layer those up nicely. And I didn't trim them down ahead of time because I wasn't exactly sure what part of those clouds I really wanted to use. So we're going to obviously clean up our mess first because I'm notorious for not doing that. And then we'll start kind of lining up our clouds the way we think they might look good. And then we're going to put that on the red background. I don't know. There was something about using the different colored cardstock to make different colored skies. It was just so much fun. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could sit here and make cards all day. And I actually end up having plenty of leftover images. I certainly could have. But this is fun. I'll set those off, and we'll, that way I've got some images all set to go for cards that I might need in a hurry. And then we're going to take our liquid glue and adhere down the pieces to our panel, lining those up. Some of them were flush to the edge, some of them are not, but I'm not worried about that because I'm going to bring in a die later on for to cut this out. And then get that last piece on there. We'll need a little bit extra glue. And then I'm going to bring in that bigger stitched rectangle die that I've been using. And then we'll cut this panel out of that. Just using, tack it down with a little bit of purple tape and run that through a die cutting machine. Like I said, I do have 3 bonus cards to show you for after this. But there we go. I went ahead and did the sentiment the same way I've done all the sentiments except the one. And then I'll attach that down with some liquid glue to the bottom part of our card, lining it up on our glass mat. And then we'll trim off the excess with our scissors. And our panel is pretty much ready to go. So I do decide that I'm going to have a red card base. I'm going to attach my card panel to that red card base. And then we're going to use some liquid glue to adhere down those 2 clouds. I know they're not yellow, but it needed a little something up there. And then we'll use some foam tape on the back of our image again. And again, I love how the die cuts out those pieces inside the balloon there. That's lovely. Just super fun. And then I risked it. I went ahead and I am drawing some little like retro stars with a white gel pen. And it's always a risk when you do that, but I actually end up really liking the way this turns out. I'll even add a few little dots of the white gel pen as well. You could skip this part and maybe just add an embellishment. That would work too. And then for the inside of the card, I do grab these little bunnies. I know we didn't have any like purple blue on the outside, but I just thought these ones were way too cute to not use on the inside. Those little sleeping bunnies just have my heart. They're so cute. And then this will finish off our 5th card, but I do want to show you 3 more cards I made. Because I had so much fun just making cards with this set again, or this kit. I could have just gone to town, and I end up having lots, like I said, lots of leftover images. But there's card number 5, and then let's go ahead and take a look at the first bonus card that I made for you. It's a slimline. I use a cloud stencil, and I also pull in some opal glaze, and I tack down a few more of those embellishments from earlier. And then here are our 2 more bonus cards, just using some more of that gingham paper. These are more traditional sketches that you might see. But let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards that I made today, because I would love to know which one of these was your favorite. If you did in fact have a favorite, please leave that down in the comment section down below. As I have said a million times, that is like my favorite part of making all these cards, just hearing what you guys think. seeing which ones you guys like best. It helps me to know which cards I might make in the future as well. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And thank you for all the nice comments you guys leave, all the thumbs upping you guys do, using my affiliate links, heck, even watching the commercials. I know it sounds crazy, but that helps me keep producing videos. So thanks for all that you do, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.